Well, ask and you shall receive. It's funny, Rube. Whenever a trade or a big move goes down, does your Twitter feed just get flooded with people like, when's the emergency pod coming?
Yeah, I get like 10. What are the cap implications? 10. What does it mean for playing time for everyone else? And 10. When's the emergency pod coming? So it's split pretty evenly. But yeah, for something like this, there's got to be a pod. Come on, let's look. Why do we exist? Why does Eagle Eye Podcast exist for days like this?
Exactly, and it's a fun day. We'll get into the Robert Quinn trade. We should mention this is Eagle Eye Podcast presented by Nissan. He's Reuben Frank. I'm Dave Zangaro. He was a name that was on our minds. I wrote about him earlier in the week. He was someone who you thought, yeah, this is a big swing. It's not a Brian Burns size swing, but it's a big name, a guy who's coming off a Pro Bowl, a guy who's been in the league for 11 years. This is his 12th season. He can help them.
Yeah, I did get a lot of, is this another Ryan Kerrigan tweets? And that's fair. You know, he's an older guy. He's 32, and he's at an age where, you know, guys start declining, most guys, especially at that position. But look, I mean, the guy had 18 and a half sacks last year. So I think the chances that he's going to help this team are pretty good. Who knows? You know, it's hard to tell with guys that age. I mean, the Eagles have had some older pass rushers have really good years. BG 2 years ago was 32. William Fuller, another North Carolina State guy, by the way.
Chris Long,
teammate. He was Quinn's teammate in St. Louis, along with Rodney McLeod and A.J. Feely, and about another 20 former Eagles. Quentin Michael was his teammate. A couple different generations. Al Harris.
You know, when I watched those early St. Louis
teams, was his rookie defensive coordinator.
Yeah, I always thought you got to really get the talent off of that 2011 St. Louis Rams team.
Yeah. That's well, most of it was going the other way, former Eagles. But yeah, it's the kind of move that Howie is just so good at because the risk reward is just so high. I mean, if he doesn't work out, you've given up a mid-round pick. And I just don't see what the downside is. One thing Howie has is picks. And if it doesn't work out, he'll just get another 4 out of the blue. So I don't worry about the picks. There's always going to be enough picks here to replenish the roster. That really isn't. I'm just not concerned about the pick. So, I don't really see a downside to it. It sounds like he was kind of in a defense. Obviously, new crew coming in Chicago. That wasn't a great fit for him. He only had 1 sack this year in 7 games. So we'll see how Gannon uses him, how Gannon and Tracy Rocker use him, and where he fits in. And I can't wait to see him. I mean, he's the first round pick the Eagles have traded for since Sam Bradford, his former teammate, interestingly. But Howie couldn't wait. Howie hasn't made a trade since he shipped Rager to the Vikings in August. So you knew he was going to do something. It was just a matter of what.
And look, I give Howie a ton of credit for not resting with a 6-0 team. It's really similar to 2017 and really 2018. We saw them make moves to try to help themselves because they felt like, we're in a position here. The other years there were some trades, but they weren't really go for it trades. This is a go for it trade.
Golden Tate wasn't a go for it trade.
No, I'm saying Golden Tate was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm saying Jay Ajayi was a go for it trade. Sure. Golden Tate certainly was. I mean, that was a 3rd-round pick. Jannard Avery was not. It was a 4th-round pick, but it was the reason you traded for him was because you feel like you have 2 more years after that year at a cheap price. This is a go for it. And whenever you look at a trade like this, the first thing you go to is risk reward, right? And there's not that much risk. It's a 2023 4th-round pick. They still have 6 picks in the draft next year, including 2 number 1 or 2 first-round picks. And it sounds like there was a report from NFL Network that the Bears are picking up a big chunk of his remaining salary this year. And if you look at the contract after this year, none of that money is guaranteed. He's under contract for 2 more seasons, but the Eagles are certainly not going to be held to that. I mean, they're either going to cut him loose after this year or figure out a contract that works for both sides. So, you put all that together, and well, what's the downside here? You potentially, all right, you lose a 4th-round pick next year.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why, to me, it's a slam dunk move that you make, because the rewards so far outweigh the risks.
The Jets just traded a 5th-round pick for James Robinson.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. So it's an interesting, I think stat wise, the Eagles are near the top in sacks, but you can always get more pressure. I mean, Barnett's out for the year. I'm not the world's biggest Barnett fan, but he was a guy who was going to be a rotational guy and get some pressure. And, we'll see where he fits in. I don't know how bad Brandon Graham's hamstring is. I did, he didn't practice today. I don't think one really is related to the other, but
no, I don't think they are at all.
I don't think they are, but it is interesting to note. And we'll see where the reps come. I think knowing Gannon and Rocker, he's not going to come in and play, 55 snaps. He's going to come in and, they'll work them in. And the more pass rushers you have, I mean, you can't have enough. So I can't wait to see him in uniform and see where he fits in and how he helps his team.
Yeah, if this team wasn't a legitimate contender, they don't make this trade and they roll with the young guys, Patrick Johnson and Teron Jackson, who have really kind of taken the role together in some ways of those Derek Barnett snaps. And neither one of them is really – I think Patrick Johnson has acquitted himself better. I think we've seen more flash from him. Not much from Teron Jackson. He's still a young 6th-round pick figuring this out. I wouldn't expect a ton. But now, I mean, now you have legitimate depth. You just start thinking about the players on this line, and you're adding Robert Quinn to a group that already had Hassan Reddick and Josh Sweat and Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave and Jordan Davis and Milton Williams. It's a good group.
It's a good group, and it's a deep group, and it's gonna be really interesting to see how the snaps are spread out, because that's a lot of guys you just mentioned who can impact the game, and it's going to be a juggling act trying to. I don't know if you keep everybody happy, but you're going to keep everyone involved, and we'll see where the snaps come from, but it's going to be tricky to spread those snaps around.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to watching some Bears tonight, because I have a sense that Quinn still has something left, and he's probably the focal point of that defensive line for opposing offenses, whereas here he's not going to be. I mean, you're probably if he's on the line, he's probably not going to see a ton of double teams anymore, or he'll see fewer.
Yeah.
And the things that I think he still has some of those physical tools. We saw them last year. His bend. I know Chris Long always talks about Robert Quinn's bend, and it's kind of funny that in a way he's replacing Derek Barnett, because that's been the feature of Barnett's career that's been his best asset is his bend around the edge. And Robert Quinn's been doing that for a decade in this league. His production has been kind of wacky. It's really been up and down when you look at the sacks, and we know sacks aren't the only number to care about, but it gives you a general sense, and really up and down throughout his career. But 102, he's tied for 6th active among active players in sacks with Aaron Donald.
It's good company to be in.
Really good company. I mean, he's quietly put together, probably not a Hall of Fame career, but be in the conversation.
I'll give you a couple great Robert Quinn stats. But first, you deserve a car that thrills you, a car that puts goosebumps on your goosebumps. At Nissan, we've got everything from turbocharged SUVs to 100% electric vehicles that'll make your heart beat faster. Experience the thrill for yourself and shop your local Nissan store at nissanusa.com today.
Oh, I have a good stat here from NFL Next Gen Stats, and this is I really like these Next Gen Stats. I wish they were more sortable. A lot of times they just tweet these out, and if you don't see it, they're gone. But it says he is averaging 0.77 second get off this season, which is tied for 5th quickest in the NFL, a minimum of 100 rushes. So the get off is still there. And that's a good stat to have, because if the tools are still there, now he's going to a defense that might fit him better. And honestly, he's not going to have to play as much.
Right. And like you said, he's not going to see the double teams that no doubt he saw in Chicago. Just real quick, his first 5 years with the Rams, made 2 Pro Bowls, or in St. Louis, then 2 more years with the Rams in L.A. He actually sacked Carson early in the game in 17 out there when Carson got hurt, guy in Indy, whatever we're calling him. A year with the Dolphins, a year with the Cowboys, in which he sacked a guy in Indy in both games in 19, both Eagles-Cowboys games. And then the last 3 years in Chicago, made 2 Pro Bowls with the Rams, and then didn't make one for 7 years, and then went again last year with that 18.5 sack season. But he's had 5 years with double-digit sacks and 2 years with 18 sacks, one of only 7 guys to do that in their career. But here's I love this one, all right? Robert Quinn's the 4th player with 100 career sacks to wear an Eagles uniform. And 2 of the others were guys who came here very late in their career. Another one was Reggie White, obviously. But the other 2 are Greg Townsend and Richard Dent, who were both here in the mid-'90s, late in their career, guys who had well over 100 sacks. So I thought that was kind of cool. That's my
Kerrigan got close. He didn't add to it when he got here.
He did in the postseason. He found a beat-up, injured offensive tackle to go against. But yeah, 102 sacks for Quinn. Interesting, you know, he in high school he was 17 years old. He collapsed a couple times at home. He was rushed to the hospital, and they found a brain tumor. And they did an operation that actually relieved the pressure and allowed the fluid to return to his brain, which was causing the lack of fluid was causing him to pass out. But they left the tumor. The tumor's still in there. And he said he gets checked out twice a year. Doesn't really think about it. They test him to make sure it's not getting any larger, which it hasn't. And so he's got a brain tumor that's been in there since for 15. Well, it's been in there. They've known about it for 15 years. I thought that was kind of interesting. And he says I just never think about it. Imagine having that in your brain, and I never think about it. So I thought that was an interesting thing as well.
Yeah, it is. Every time I hear tumor, though, I just go to Kindergarten Cop. It's not a tumor. You don't know Kindergarten Cop?
No, what's that?
Arnold Schwarzenegger movie.
No, I missed that one.
Okay.
But I did make a movie reference the other day with Tales from the Crypt. And what I didn't share was that I was there with my best friend and his older brother, and we didn't have a ride back from the movie theater. And they decided it would be a really good idea to walk across and your photos reminded me of this, to walk across a train trestle across the Hackensack River. There was no walkway or anything. There was just train tracks over a river. And we start walking across this thing, and no train came, but in my mind, I heard something. And we just were like running it. And it was like probably 20 feet down. So I really didn't want to go into the drink. But we just kind of made a run for we all freaked each other out. And this is after seeing a horror movie, and you're in the dark walking across a train trestle in Teaneck and Hackensack, New Jersey. So I haven't seen many horror movies since then. And when I have, I don't walk home.
That's fair. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Anyway.
When do you think he plays? I mean, he's going to arrive on a Thursday.
Yeah.
Is that too quick of a turnaround? Look, he's a veteran. He's been in the league. This is his 12th year. So it's like he's seen it all, but is that too quick to throw him into the fire?
I think he gets a handful of snaps Sunday against Pittsburgh. Maybe you give him 8 snaps, 6 to 10, somewhere in that range. I don't think it would be more than that.
In a way, it's a shame how he couldn't have got this done on the bye week. Give him a little bit of a chance here, because then after this game, you're on a short week with that Thursday night game. So it's not like he's going to have it after the bye week. He'll really have a chance, or after the kind of that mini bye, he'll have a chance to really digest it all. But in the meantime, I guess you just kind of limit what you do with him.
Yeah, but I think it's a position where, I don't know if you throw a cornerback right in there, or there's some positions, wide receiver. There's some positions where if you miss an assignment, it could really, really hurt your team. As an edge rusher, if you miss an assignment, you just don't get a sack or a pressure. So I could see them giving him,
or your gap integrity is
ruined.
Yeah,
that's fair. But I do think they'll give him some run Sunday.
That'd be fun to see.
Not a lot, but some. Yeah,
he'd get quite a cheer from the home crowd here.
He sure would. I think the way things are in this city, anybody is going to get a cheer. You could put, who's
that video of people cheering for the SEPTA bus? They were chanting SEPTA, SEPTA.
Yeah.
First time in SEPTA history.
It's a different era in Philly right now. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, enjoy it because it's not going to be like this forever.
No. But
anything else on Robert Quinn?
No.
How do you think once he's caught up? How do you think snaps are going to break down between those edge guys? Because Reddick and Sweat are still your starters. Graham is a big part of it. Does it really become a 4-man edge rotation?
I think probably the young guys are the odd men out. I would think. Look, they're both late round picks, and they both shown some flashes. But look, this team is 6-0, battling two, pretty good teams in the division, and I think a veteran, you're going to count on a veteran giving you more than they are. So I would think that's where the snaps would come from. I think Sweat's played pretty well. I don't think you're going to want to cut Sweat snaps down. Obviously, Reddick snaps. But I think the young guys will probably, we might not see them much or at all.
Yeah, I'm curious to see exactly how he fits into the front here, because you have – so these guys are kind of interchangeable, whether they're playing kind of that outside backer spot or a 4-3 end.
Right.
Is Quinn going to do both of those right away? Or are they going to kind of give him one or the other? And we've even seen them kind of walk up Kaiser White in that bear package too. They'll kind of show a 4-3 and then they'll walk him up and be in the bear. Some moving parts here. I wonder how long Quinn has been on their radar and how good of an idea Jonathan Gannon already had about how he wants to use him.
I'm guessing that ever since they got, it's been no secret that people in Chicago don't think he's a great fit in what they're doing now. So I'm guessing that he's been on the radar all year. And again, he's 6'4", 245-ish type guy.
Look him up. He's listed 6'4", 245.
Okay. So
at least on Pro Football Ref.
Okay. So, it's a new toy for Gannon, and I just give Howie so much credit for. The guy does not sit still. He's not one to look. We have a 6-0 team. We got great chemistry. He's always looking to add pieces, and man, you think about it. Since training camp ended, you added Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, and even Bradbury was late. He was he wasn't here for OTAs.
Yeah.
So since OTAs ended, they added like 3 pretty important pieces on this defense.
It's so funny because, that first week of free agency, people were a little nervous because all they had really added was Hassan Reddick. And this is a year-long thing for Howie. It doesn't stop. He's always trying to add talent. And some of it's luck, too, let's be honest, because it just so happened that these guys were available. James Bradbury gets cut. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson becomes available because of a contract situation. The Bears stink, which I guess you could have kind of relied on here, but the Bears stink, and Robert Quinn becomes available in a trade. So part of it's luck, but you also give Howie credit for being opportunistic. And I think he has the reputation now in the league where if you have a player that you're trying to trade, he's at least down for a trade. I don't know if I'd trade with him at this point.
Yeah, it's interesting.
There's so many GMs at this,
Yeah, that's true.
The Bryce Harper. Don't do it.
I think with picks, he's certainly got the magic touch. This is a little different because it's a player. As far as the Kerrigan comparison, he had 5.5 sacks his last year in Washington. Quinn had 18.5 sacks last year in Chicago. So it's a little different. I think the expectations are a little higher. Kerrigan was disappointing, but I would think you would get a little better return.
I don't know. He's playing winning football for them. Jonathan Gannon told me.
Yeah. Yeah, now he's coaching Montez Sweat in Washington, but he went from one Sweat to the other. But yeah, I mean, Howie is he's really unique in I mean, maybe not unique, but you know, I just think there's a mindset that some people have of, you know, okay, we're set now, we're good, we're okay, we're 6-0, we're rolling here, we're the best team in football, blah blah blah. There's just nothing of that in Howie. He's always looking ahead. He's always back in the old days when I was allowed in Howie's office. He has a thing on his wall. Back when I was allowed in the building, for crying out loud, he has a thing on his wall where he has. I don't think I was supposed to see it, but he has like next year's depth chart, the year after's depth chart, like, you know, who's under contract.
If you disappear tonight, we'll know what happened.
And so it was really interesting to see. It was, you know, just the notion that he's got the 2024 depth chart up there right now based on who they have signed. So he's always looking at that, you know, and think he's always just wired to think ahead. And maybe every GM does that. I don't know, but it was cool to see it. And I haven't been allowed in since, but it's he's quite the miracle worker.
Yeah, and a lot of the times when you make a trade like this before the deadline, you wonder, how is this guy going to fit into a locker room, which is a legitimate concern when you're talking about a team that's 6-0 and is very tight knit. Based on everything we know about Robert Quinn, that is not going to be an issue.
Yeah.
Team captain in Chicago. I don't know if you've seen the video of Roquan Smith.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, what a moment. Finding out about the trade while doing a press conference and breaking down about the loss of his teammate there. So it tells you very well respected in that locker room and no reason to think he won't get along with everyone here.
And that's another thing Howie looks at. I mean, he's not bringing in guys who are going to upset the apple cart. And that's
well, I mean, there have been guys that you wondered about, like, you know, in 2017, that was a big talking point around Jay Ajayi he wasn't getting along with people in Miami. Like, is he going to come here and fit in? They did enough homework and they felt like they had the veterans in place to make sure it wasn't an issue, and it wasn't.
And I think it's another cool thing about having a GM that's been a GM for so long. Like, you got to be pretty old for Howie not to have, you know, scouted you coming out of college. I think his first year as GM was 10 or 11, right? I think it was
10.
It was 10 in the spring of 10. So, you know, that was the year that he didn't play in college. He was suspended. But Howie does his homework. Howie's not going to bring in a guy if there's any well, you can't control everything, but if there's a realistic chance, and if there is, they'll cut him. I mean, and we've seen that happen. We've seen, you know, when you see a guy get cut in early October who's been starting, saying, all right, what's going on here? You know, maybe he just sucks as a player, but maybe he's just not a great fit and want to just get him out of the building. I don't see that happening here.
Not with Robert Quinn. No, I think they're going to be okay. Yeah. Anything else before we wrap this up?
Nope. Excited to see him.
I'll mention this is a bonus pod. We're still keeping our normal schedule. You guys were just bugging us, so we figured we'd give in. And
do we know what number he's wearing?
No. Why?
Just people always ask. That's something people always care about.
No, I don't know. He's worn 94 most of his career, and I can't imagine Sweat will give that up.
Depends how much it's worth to him.
I'm going through I don't have any options. Is 98 available? I got to look this up because, I mean, 90 is taken. 91 is Fletch. 92 is not available. 93 is Milton.
You don't think they'll give 92 away?
I don't think so. 98's available. That's probably going to be it, right? And 99 obviously not available. He could go in the 50s if he wants.
Let me just check this here.
He's worn 58 before, but that's Kyron Johnson's number.
Hold 98. Most recently worn by
Hassan Ridgway.
Hassan Ridgway. I was going to say Bruce Hector. I forgot about Ridgway.
And in camp, they had Rennell Wren.
Greg Richmond, Mike Patterson wore it for a long time.
Not exactly a defensive end number, but
it's more like an interior lineman number. Brandon Whiting. Yeah. Although Barwin wore it, right?
Yeah.
Elijah Qualls.
All right. We got to end this. You got anything else?
No.
All right. Thank you for everyone for listening. If you enjoyed the Eagle Eye podcast, please rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. That's it. This has been an emergency Eagle Eye podcast presented by Nissan. For Reuben, I'm Dave. We'll talk to you soon.